There you go.
Okay. Well, welcome to the December 28th, 2021 session of Tangerine SDR and Hamside Technical Session. My name is Dave, KV0S. And this week, let's see, well, Christmas got in the way. Um, Dave and I have been learning a little bit about some LoRa transmissions. I've been working on my whisper beacons. Mine seems to be transmitting fine, but my receive side seems to have gotten weak. So I assume it's either uh, something atmospheric or something in my antenna, maybe some water in one of the joints. So I'm going to spend some time looking at that. So that's it for me. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks a lot, Dave. It's been busy here. It's been Christmas, so I've been doing some holiday sorts of things, and I'm trying to trying to get caught up on emails and things like that. Working, I really have not gotten to start on the annual report yet, so that's going to be my task for tomorrow. I think working on the annual report for the NSF, so I'm working on that. I think that's pretty much it. I was able to post the Hamside Contesting League for Gary, which I'm sure he can talk about later. I'm looking forward to that. And let's see. And then Jonathan has good results with the VLF receiver. I think that's about it for right now. So back to net.
Okay. Next on the list is Bill in 8ET. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I finally got something to report here. You can hear me so far?
Yes.
Okay, good. My audio is working again. But yeah, there was a article in what QSC or QEX on making a little whisper beacon with a SI 5351 module and a Arduino Nano. And it turns out I've got all the bits and pieces here, and I started to put it together. So I'll get that running probably another 2 days. Got to do some running around tomorrow, but the day after that, I should be able to finish it up. And got a 3D printer here for Christmas that I've got put together, which was quite a trick with one hand, and managed to get it all together without losing any pieces. I turned it on, but that's as far as I've gotten. I haven't put any filament in it yet to see if it will actually run, but it looks pretty good sitting there on the floor.
Yeah.
The only other thing that happened this past week, Christmas Day, I got some FD8 software running. You've all heard of WSJTX. This was a WSJTZ, and the difference is it will automatically call CQ or do 100 pounds. So you set it off and walk away from it, come back a while later, and it's worked a bunch of people. So I set the thing off, stepped in the other room for about 5 minutes, came back in, and it worked 20 contacts for me. So it was pretty neat. I've turned it off, haven't used it since then, but still a few things I'm not too sure about with it. And but it looks like it'll be a lot of fun. I got a couple of friends that have been using it, so it's kind of interesting. So that's about it from here. Back to you, Dave.
Fine business. And next on the list is David in 1HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone. And I hope everyone had a good Christmas, or as some of us say, the second leg of the Bermuda Triangle, getting through the holidays. Got one more to go. And I guess the most significant radio thing I've done lately was I was on FT8, making a bunch of contacts on 10 meters, and actually one to Florida on 6, which was a bit of a surprise. I think it also was showing that a lot of band activity has to do with whether people are on, not whether the band is active. I'm sure I think there was a lot more available for 6 meters than just that one contact, but I was happy to find someone on. But 10 meters was pretty active. This was early in the day too. So yeah, that one, I was doing a lot of South America, Central America. Yeah, there's a lot of propagation to study out there.
Yes.
And it's going to get more interesting. And then of course, the big thing for Christmas is go web. I did get to
Yes.
watch the launch. It was quite spectacular and pretty good that it got itself off the ground. As a rocket scientist myself, it's like, oh my God, pins and needles.
Yeah,
But it's
I-
on its way.
I did watch that as well.
Back to net.
Very good, David. And next on the list is another David, David Witten,
Oh,
case KD0EAG. Go ahead, David.
oh, hello. Yes, I was fooling with something else. Can't say there's very much biggest excitement at the moment that I have to report. Probably just mostly listen this evening, but I'll leave it at that for now. Back to you.
Okay. Next on the list is another David, KE8, sorry, QEP.
Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone here tonight. Well, I guess the big news here is that despite all the booster shots and whatnot, my wife, tested positive for COVID. So we canceled our travel plans to New Jersey. I'll get tested, I think, tomorrow. I assume I have it. But with all the shots, I think we seem to be doing okay. It's been, quite difficult being forced to stay at home and have to work on all the projects I've been trying to catch up on. So I'm not complaining too much, although my wife, who is sitting across from here working on a puzzle, is not so happy about that. I did relocate the grape receiver to my basement. I ran a new power outlet down to actually, I think it's the side of the old coal bin that must have been in this house. And I ran MC cable down and mounted it all up on the wall. And I think that may be an improvement. I haven't quite finished hooking it up. And I also wanted to be like all you cool kids and get on Whisper. And so I got the taper Whisper beacon, and I evidently have fried that. So I've been I seem to be good at frying tapper things. But I'm in contact with the guy who built it, and he's going to get me, I think, the part I fried, and we'll get it working eventually. And maybe, Dave, after the introductions, I'd like to hear what you're using for receiving.
Oh, yes.
As a technician, I can only, I guess, do 10 or 6 meters, but I guess I can receive on.
You can receive on any of them.
So that's it. Back to you, Dave.
Yes, very good. I was wondering if you got your hole bailed out yet.
What's that?
Did you get the water bailed out of your hole yet?
Well, no, the water's still there, but I'm going to actually take Gary's suggestion and use a fake rock and just have the head above ground. And I'm just waiting for to get another remote board.
Okay.
So the regrading the backyard may take longer, but I think if the head's above ground, it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
And the fake rock or something like that will keep the dog from attacking the thing.
Well, very good. Next on the list is another David Woodward. Go ahead, David. Whoop, mute. You're muted still. There you go.
Gotta get the right buttons hit. Um, just sitting back here listening to the net. I too am going to be ordering me one of those whisper boards from Tapper here pretty soon, so maybe I can fry it just as well as the previous Dave. And but anyway, just if anybody has any thoughts on the magnetometer spacing, if a person were to have 4 or so magnetometers spaced in an array, would someone be able to actually get vector data of land tides, so to speak? But anyway, that's just some of the things I'm thinking about. And the other thing, on top of each one of those little ground stations, I planned on putting a whisper station on top, and all hooked with one clock. And then if that were to work out, it might be a pretty handy little science station. But anyway, just any thoughts anybody wants to put in on that would be great. And if not, we can go on to the next subject without any discernment by me. Anyway, y'all have a good evening, and I'm gonna return you to the net if I.
Well, anybody else can chime in, but I'm doubtful that you'll get enough resolution out of the magnetometer to determine vector direction. I don't know. Does anybody else have a comment?
Yeah, not likely to get gradient information with any practical spacing.
So hopefully that answers your question, David. Next on the list, we have Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Spent a little bit of time in the last week or two trying to get the ham-sci contesting league kicked off. I'm sure most of you probably saw the information I put out on the Google Groups listserv. And Nathaniel, thanks for the assistance, has got an announcement up on the ham-sci homepage. So hopefully those of us like myself and Bill for sure. I know, Scotty, I've worked your call a few times in field day. Nathaniel, I know you're a member of the Frankfurt Radio Club and thinking about operating. We'll consider doing a little bit of operating in third weekend, I think it is in January, the 22nd. Get on for the North American QSO party, the sideman version. Speak with some of your fellow ham-sci members, obviously a lot of other contesters out there, but also get the ham-sci name out there a little bit. I want to create some teams, ham-sci specific names, get our names and call signs and so forth up in lights, so to speak, when the results come out. So again, it's on the ham-sci homepage if you're interested. And if you've got any questions, obviously let me know. My contact info is there. Be glad to assist. Back to net.
Fine business. And next on the list is Hyomin Kim, KD2 MCR. Go ahead, Hyomin.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's been a while since I attended this meeting. I was away for a meeting in New Orleans with Nathaniel. And then the next week, I had a visitor from the place, so I had to host her at my institute. So I've been quite occupied. And now, I mean, nothing is really going on. Right now, the only thing that I like to share is that I'm unofficially involved with a rocket campaign that will be happening next February. That is NASA-funded sounding rocket project, where I'm going to be supporting a ground instrumentation called rheometer. Maybe some of you may know what that is, but rheometer measures the electron precipitation during auroral activity. Basically measures the VHF radio frequency range around like 30 to 40 megahertz. So when there is a precipitation, the radio opacity increases. So we actually receive lower signal than typical times. So that we use that opacity as a proxy of electron precipitation that is associated with auroral activity. So at Alaska, there will be a rocket launch, and as part of a rocket launch call, we'll be looking at rheometer as well as the other multiple instruments, including like auroral imagers, camera, magnetometers, etc., to make sure that the launch condition is satisfied. So that's what I'm working on right now in the context of observations of certain type of auroral activity. So that's quite interesting, and maybe that interests you guys because that's also radio frequency. So
Absolutely.
otherwise, question, David?
Oh, I just said absolutely. By the way, I don't know if you're aware, but we used to have some rheometers up at Poker ourselves.
Right, right. This particular rheometer has been developed by a group at University of Calgary. So rheometer technology has been around, like, I don't know, like 60s, 70s. It's pretty old technology.
Earlier than that. It was earlier than that. It used tube. It was originally tube technology.
Yeah, based on basically just analog circuitry. Nowadays, they are in the process of upgrading it. So it now is completely fully digital, based on FPGA. So everything is programmable remotely, even multi-band. And then sometimes by installing an array of antennas, you can actually do some imaging. So they can figure out where the auroral activity is coming from, kind of, as opposed to single beam antenna. So yeah, things are changing a little bit, although I'm still learning about this system. But yeah, this seems, maybe this is this may interest you guys, as I said, because it's a VHF radio frequency range. So anyway,
we used to have a broadband rheometer up there. The antenna may still be standing. The receiver's been taken out.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were doing like 10 to 30 megahertz broadband.
Yeah.
As well as some single frequency rheometers.
Right. I mean, rheometer has been used pretty heavily back in maybe 70s, 80s, up to until 90s. But then the community lost kind of their interest. So the rheometer system has been sort of like abandoned. Now I think they're picking up the interest again, and by developing, upgrading the system. So, for example,
that is something we can. Yeah, that is something the TangerineSDR could be ideal for.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. For example, rheometer system that is installed at Magmoto system is completely abandoned right now. No PIs, no ongoing project. The antennas are there, but it's not operational. But it's picking up interest again. It has pretty good advantage. For example, one example is that it doesn't rely on weather condition, as you can see, as opposed to auroral camera. The cloud cover has to be in a good condition, whereas rheometer doesn't really care about the cloud cover that much. So that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think maybe it's time for us to resurrect the system out there.
Yeah, as you're probably aware, there are imaging rheometers at the EGO sites.
The fate of EGO is not so rosy at the moment.
Well, I know. I'm not saying they're operating. I'm just saying they're there.
Yep. Yeah. Anyway, there are a lot of opportunities out there. Yeah, it's relatively inexpensive, relatively easier to install. So yeah, I guess this is one of the project that the ham-sci community can be involved with. So anyways, back to Ned.
Fine business. Next on the list, we have James, KG4 DSG. Go ahead, James.
Evening, Dave. Is the audio working on this camera?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Just listening in tonight. Nothing new to report. Just always interested in learning something new, and tonight's no different. So with that, back to the net.
Well, very good. And next on the list is Jim, K4 BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening. Well, not a whole lot going on here between the holiday and my wife and I have both been nursing injuries recently. So unfortunately, not a lot to um, report. My grape one, I had some trouble last week. Looks like it was an FL Digi problem. But I think it seems to be working right now. That's really all I've got here. Back to Ned.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Dave, and good evening, everybody. Well, here it's taking care of Christmas duties and relocating 4 or 5 inches of snow. The weather people predict 9 to 17 by 9 to 17 inches by Wednesday, so it's going to be kind of busy. Grape is dutifully collecting data, and let's see, this time of year is pretty good for sporadic E on 6 meters and 10 meters, and that's why the 10-meter contest is held now. So it's a good time to get on, and especially for people who have technician class licenses, gives them a good opportunity to get a little high frequency work there. Thank you, Dave.
Very good. And next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. A lot of good news to report. As Nathaniel mentioned, SAQ's annual Christmas Eve transmission occurred at a little after 3 in the morning local time on Christmas Eve, and to my surprise, the VLF receiver picked it up. I was absolutely thrilled. The signal was buried in noise. It was pretty weak, and it had to be filtered quite a bit for you to actually make out the code. What I did was it was initially filtered 1,000 hertz bandwidth at the carrier, and then it was downshifted to 500 hertz. And you could only make out CW in about 14 minutes of the message. So then I posted it to the listserv, as you all may have seen. John was nice enough to give me the idea to use a different sort of bandpass filter. So what I was using, VT filter, implements a brick wall filter for its bandpass. SOX uses I believe a 2-pole Butterworth filter for its bandpass, and it actually worked better. So I was able to filter out a 20 hertz wide spectrum around the carrier, or the downshifted carrier, and you could easily make out the code. It's still very difficult to listen to. You really need to pay attention, but you could make everything out. So that was really exciting, because it's usually SAQ is very hard to copy here in North America from a lot of reports that I've been getting. People in Europe have gotten really nice copies. Paul Nicholson had a really nice copy. He's in the UK. Peter Fife, Peter Newton, he's in Fife, Scotland. Very nice copy there too. Bunch of people around Europe able to make really nice copies, but I was really happy. And then what I also posted to the listserv was a spectrum plot. And you can see that the carrier for SAQ, it was actually around 17.19 kilohertz instead of 17.2. Obviously, because the a motor has to keep everything running, and it wasn't exact, but that was really good for 1920s technology. And it was only 3 magnitudes above the noise floor, so that was a really nice plot. I was really happy with that. Also, I've been working on filtering the system. There's a lot of mains harmonics, as Joe mentioned in the email. There's quite a lot of mains harmonics in the spectrum, and I need to hopefully figure out where they're coming from. I don't know if they're coming from something external in the environment, but it's kind of weird to see mains harmonics all the way up to 20 kilohertz and higher. So there's something definitely emitting, whether it's a motor or if it's a synchronous switch or something like that. But something is making it noisy, and the problem is when you have all those harmonics, the noise floor actually increases. So if you're looking for weak signals, it becomes really hard to actually pick them out because of all those harmonics. And I've noticed it when listening to the stream. I could hear that buzzing, and there's quite a bit of it. So I need to figure out where that is. Also, one quick reminder for those who use NTPD, the leap seconds file, I believe is expiring today, so you'll have to update that. Other than that, that's all I have. Back to the net.
Well, fine business and congratulations. Next on the list, we have Michael, AAAK. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks very much, Dave, and greetings to everyone on the group. Let me just share something here. Before the meeting, we were talking about old days when RF in rural areas was quite difficult. That's the old farmhouse where I grew up, and that's the tower where we were able to receive 4 channels on a good day, and now it's a wireless WISP carrying a lot more data. Happy New Year, everyone.
Well, Happy New Year to you. And so next on the list is Scotty, WA2DFI. Go ahead, Scotty.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. I can't see you yet, though.
Yeah, I'm
Mike's
trying
still
to
sharing.
you.
I still like the tower. That's a nice picture. Even though it doesn't have anything on. Oh, it does have an antenna on it. Anyway, spent most of this week just being depressed over not being able to get any parts because they're trying to build magnetometers. And it looks like the 9615s are out of stock. And the replacement one is out of stock. And the connectors for the surface mount connectors for the 3100 board, they're out of stock also, both varieties. And it's interesting because the connector, the surface mount connectors, there's 2 varieties. There's a C type and a D type. And the C type, the first pin comes out and goes one way, and the D type, the first pin comes out and goes the other way. Okay, but they're single row. Well, it turns out if you have an odd number of pins, turn it around, a C type becomes a D type and vice versa. But if you have an even number of pins, you turn a C type around, you get a C type. Well, we have 7-pin connectors, so both variants would work, but both variants are sold out. So you can't get any. So
Not the first one to figure that out, probably.
I'm sure I'm not the first one to figure that out, but it did come to me in a flash some time ago when I was saying, well, now which one should we buy? Because notoriously, whatever one I put on the schematic, that one will become unobtainium, and the other one will be available in 10,000s. But so, and if we used even numbered, I mean, not like we used it, P and I used 2 7-pin ones. So we're good there. So David, if David's here, yeah, he's here. I do not have a Rev E board for you. I have a Rev D board. So see, are you, oh, you're here. So the difference is the connector comes off the side. Is that so? If you have to, if I don't know, do you have Rev E boards that have the connectors coming off the bottom?
Well, the one in the remote board, I think it comes off the bottom or top, and the local board, it comes off the side.
Okay, because I don't have any more boards that come off the bottom, so I don't know how that's going to fit in your pipe coming off the side like that. So you may have to do a super crunch, turn it to the side.
Okay,
So,
well,
but if
I
you can
mean-
make this work, you can have this one. I just don't have any more Rev Es.
Well, and I may take you up on that, but I can also try to beg and borrow from other people if anyone else has a Rev D board that they would
Rev
like.
Es
me to-
what you need, because the Ds and the Es will play together. They don't
Okay.
matter. It's just that one of them has a physical right angle, other one comes off this way. So if you can't physically put it in your pipe, slide it in and have the cable come off this way, you got to bend it over at a really sharp angle.
Or, I mean, I suppose I could just solder the connector, the
wires.
wires
You can
in.
solder the wires on. Yeah, you
That's
could
what
do that.
Jules does.
But remember, this is a Rev D, so there's no header for that. So you're gonna have to take the connector off and solder to the pins of the RJ45.
Okay,
Because this is the last Rev where we decided that this was not the right way to do it, that it should come off in the middle on the bottom. So this is actually on the top of the board, and it comes off on the right angle. So I was hoping you had Rev Es, because then you could swap the one on your Raspberry Pi and use that in the outside and use this one on the Pi,
Okay.
because either way it will work on the Pi, no problem.
well, I'll see if anyone else has a spare board, and if not, then I'll figure out how to make that one work. And
Nobody's
I-
going to have spare Rev Es because there are hardly any of them.
okay,
Not until we get the problem solved and make 500 sets, which is what we're trying to do. But look at it. I mean, I just took a look at a few of the parts, and it's like the garden variety parts that are not like capacitors, resistors. I don't care about. I can make those work. But when the connectors are not available, there's nothing I can do. I mean, if it don't fit on the board, it don't fit.
So the parts that you're missing are the surface mount 7-pin connectors. I don't have those, but the 9516s.
Yeah. Do you have 500 of them?
No, I don't have 500. I'm sorry. I was tempted, but I didn't.
I'm just being a
I've-
smart aleck because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to build a production run. and
Yeah,
I-
yeah, no, can't help on that, but
Yeah.
but if somebody was trying to put together one or two, but I have been singularly unsuccessful at hand soldering those 9516s.
Yeah, they're really fine. So
And but I do have most. But
yeah. So
maybe we
Dave,
can find
if you want to send me back the board you got, I'll see if I can fix it. That might be another alternative. But
okay. Well,
anyway,
I can send it back to you.
and I'll send you this one anyway, and you can see if you can make it work. I think even if you were to take the RJ the cable, the Cat5 cable, and to slit the outer outer insulation, so you just had loose wires, you could probably bend it over at a really sharp angle. Just slit it back, an inch back, just to get the outer jacket, so that the interconnectors would fan out flat, and then you could make a right angle real easy.
Or I could also just put it in a larger pipe. I mean,
or you can put it in a larger pipe. Yeah.
No, I could send that back to you, and I can also try cleaning up the board and just see. I mean, maybe something was just shorted and nothing's fried. But
you like clean it with alcohol and Q-tip and then try it again, see if it works.
Yeah, maybe I should do that first.
Yeah.
And then
it looks like it might have gotten under the RJ45.
Yeah, I think a lot of the water came in down the RJ45. And maybe some contacts were just bridged. I'll clean it up and see what happens.
And let me know if you find out that I can send you an RJ45 if you need to replace that part. If
Okay.
the inside's all corroded and the pins are all gunked up, because I don't know how you'd ever get inside there and clean those.
Well, I mean, I can probably clean it well enough to see if it
Yeah.
functions.
That picture you sent looked like it was pretty nasty inside of the RJ45.
Yeah, and I think it had been leaking for a while. It wasn't just one event. And now I have some better ideas for fully waterproofing it. But yeah, I'll try cleaning it up and see what happens, and then if not, I'll send it back to you and
Okay.
see
Well,
what
like I
happens.
said, let me know if you need any parts. So I'll send this out to you, but I'll wait until I hear from you to see if
Okay.
an RJ45 or something to try to make the other one work.
Scotty, did you notice that the 9615 has last time buy?
Yeah, it's going to be changed for a different number, but it's just a different suffix.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a part number change. The problem is that the new part number isn't available either, so it doesn't really help me. And I think at the beginning, when they first changed the part number, it was available back a couple months ago.
Yeah.
But I saw that they were going to do a EOL on that, just on that part number.
Yeah.
6-9 months ago, I think.
Yeah, back when you said that, Dave, I went and looked and researched it and found out it was a part number change. And they were going to have a new part, or they already even had a new part. I don't remember, and it's drop-in replacement. So it's.
I think they do that just to aggravate us.
Yeah, I think so.
What are they changing? A silly little millimeter on the package or something?
I didn't look close. I hate that when they say, okay, here's two pictures. Which one is different from the other? And you have to go and figure out what it is. Or here's a 100-page data sheet. Which page has it changing?
It's Scotty, it's the headers for the RM3100 that are
Yeah, it's these black things that the RM3100 plugs into.
But those are just like two little.
Yep.
Yeah, they are just like two, except on the new board, they're SMT. So that makes them a little bit harder to find,
okay.
the through hole ones. And yeah, they are just little bitty dippy connectors. And that's like, why should I have trouble finding those? And I haven't given up yet because I'm not sure that there's not another vendor that I might be able to find, but I haven't. Normally I didn't worry about it because last time I looked, one of the variants, they had like 5,000 of them. So I didn't care. But now those are all gone. So, and they're quoting like May delivery. So it's like, yeah, you can get them if you believe them in 5 months. But it's one of those things where if I could find another vendor, I'll do that. And then what we were talking about, I don't know, I asked this question. Remember we were talking about the long pins here?
Yeah.
Go on the Raspberry Pi, and how getting in between that and the header down there is really hard. So one of the solutions was to make these short pins and then just say, put this board on the top.
Right.
And don't worry about it. Well, one of the other things that occurred to me is you don't need these headers, these black headers on the Raspberry Pi version that you need the long pins.
Right.
So we could just leave off the RM3100 headers on half the boards that we produce, because we're going to sell them as pairs anyway. So you get one without these, and then you make sure you put your long pin header on that one. And then the one with them doesn't need the long pin header because it's in the pipe. So you don't have that problem at all. And it saves us about 60 cents on the board. And you can laugh at 60 cents, but the whole bill of materials is only like 12 bucks. So every penny you say shave off is a penny less that you have to charge for the board. And I'm already kind of pushing up against the limit. I'm trying to make the board set cost under 100 bucks. That's including the RM3100 module and the pins and everything. So you have to buy that kit, and then you have to buy the remote kit, which is the pipe and the fittings and the bulkhead and all that, and the 100 feet of cable. So then that'll comprise your whole setup. So I think if we're really lucky, we can get the whole thing under 200 bucks. So Dave, what does 100 foot of cable cost from your guy in Missouri there?
Mine was, well, the last order I made, they were $50, but I have gotten them a little I did order once and found some on Amazon for like 30
And that's
$30.
shielded?
And it
I
was
was-
shielded.
Yeah.
I was getting pretty good ones for $32 or something. And that
Right.
was Amazon's, you know, they have kind of a generic, they have their own brand kind of thing for
Yes.
some stuff. I think it was that,
Like Amazon Basics or something?
something like that.
Yeah. So then
It's pretty well specified what it needs to be, you know,
yeah.
and if it's.
And then the big ticket item becomes the bulkhead connector that's.
Yep.
And I was thinking, you know, so do you see any problem with just using a $2 bulkhead connector that has the two female jacks and then what do you call it? I forget the name of it. A wire, just a seal on the cable. So there's a name for it. It's escaping me now.
A gland?
A gland nut, right. So just use a gland on the wire, run the wire straight through, plug on that end, plug on the pigtail. In fact, you could even run the wire all the way through to the bottom, but then it gets problem servicing it. But you could put the double female, the little coupler thing right in the T. And so you could take the gland nut off and you could pull it out. And that makes, because a gland nut is way cheaper than a bulkhead connector. And the free hanging bulkhead connector is, you know, like $2. So
Trouble is getting a gland nut that you can get the RJ45 connector through.
Right, which means you have to have a big hole and a split grommet, right?
Right.
Yeah, and a big enough hole to get it through, but small enough that you can tighten it down tight enough to make a decent seal.
Right, and I've looked at
I'm not sure those things aren't mutually exclusive. I'm not
well,
sure.
I found a furniture grade cap that if you glue it with RTV will I'm sure be waterproof, that is flat on the end with no printing. And it is 20, I want to say 25 millimeter diameter, 29 millimeter. The point is that if you look at the gland nut, the gland assembly, it's 10 millimeters smaller. So that gives you 5 millimeters on either side to get your fingers in there or pliers in there and hold the nut down while you tighten the gland nut down. And I think that will be enough. And if it isn't, what you could do theoretically is if I could find this, you could use a 1.5 by 2 T with 1.5s up and down and a 2-inch T coming off, which makes the pipe bigger. Then you can put a cap on that and you get plenty of room there. You get 50 millimeters of room to put your 20 millimeters of gland nut on there. And I'm not really worried about how rare those are, because if I can find a source of them, you'll be buying them in the kit from us anyway. So, you know, if we can find a source of 500 of them, then we're done. As long as they don't cost $30 a piece. So
that sounds good.
The problem I ran into with the gland nut I used, and this can't pass an RJ45, but it's just got a very thin gasket in there, and as it tightens, it forms a cone. There's not enough rubber to fully compress around it, so it makes a skirt, I think, around the front where at the nose where it gets tightened.
Yeah.
And had I had enough dielectric grease in there, I think it would have been okay.
And I think the trick is the dielectric grease and also flooding the cable with that, so that if it does come down the cable, that it stops there.
Well, and that was, I think, one of the other big failure points that I had is I used flooded cable out to the magnetometer, but I didn't use the flooded cable going into it. And I had an external connection, through a butt joint.
So you got water in the connection?
Well, yeah, and I had dielectric grease on the ends of the RJ45 and they were fine, but it was non-flooded cable that went into the pipe. And I think that wicked stuff up there. And the reason why I didn't use the flooded cable is because it was so stiff. I was afraid it was going to mess up the alignment of the board and just stress it out and, give it undue anxiety.
So is that flooded cable a lot more expensive than standard cable? This
Well,
is-
I got the flooded cable that Jules suggested on eBay, and it wasn't that expensive.
Okay.
And it's got a thicker jacket, but it's much stiffer than standard, non-flooded
Well,
cable.
I'm thinking even in terms of offering a little tube of silicone grease in the kit, because it's going to be that important to do it. It's not going to be, oh, by the way, you might try this. It's going to be like, you need to do this.
Yeah, and the external butt joint that went into, one of those 2-gland shielded connectors, I had the silicone grease on either side, and there was no corrosion. Even though one side totally flooded, there was no corrosion on any of those connectors.
Because you had them all packed in grease, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That works amazing wonders.
And the difference, I mean, and also this was totally submerged, not above ground. And I'm going to take Gary's fake rock idea, although I would like to get a dialect or a monolith model as opposed to a rock. But I think if it's above ground, my system would have worked fine. I mean, it got flooded multiple times before failure.
If you're really interested in the fake rock idea, I spent some time at one point thinking about that, because I live in a neighborhood with lots of covenants, and not that anyone seems to pay attention to them, but they would if I did it. And so I found that you can buy what the people who build props and sets for things for theater and movies and stuff. There's a whole industry supporting that. And I found I could get, like the 3-inch rigid foam that I could get at the hardware store, and 4x8 sheets. Well, they make a whole lot of special stuff that you paint on the outside of it to make it look like rocks.
Okay.
You can get smooth, you can get rough, and it waterproofs it. And so you can, and glue that, so you can make big piles of it. And so you can sculpt it with a hot wire and make, I thought of even putting a gazebo out in my yard. But anyway, if you really were inspired, you could build, a sheer wall out there of this stuff and make it look realistic too. And it's also, supposedly it's waterproofing. So,
Well, that kind of prop stuff's like in the movie Spinal Tap, where they get the stone hinge and they didn't get the scale right, and it comes down, and it's
yeah.
And the amplifiers go to 11 too, so they're louder.
Yes.
Well, my brother has a friend who builds sets, and
No, you're exactly right. They can make them look exactly like.
Oh, if you listen to her long enough, you realize that almost nothing that you see is what you think it is, and almost all of it's big paintings. Like anything that they're not actually interacting with is probably a giant painting, and that's what she does. And so, yeah, lots of smoke and mirrors, but it could be put to good use for these sorts of purposes as well.
I would like to have an artisanal small batch fake rock covering my magnetometer.
Yes, or you could build
some generic
a lawn gnome, or a dinosaur.
Dalek.
Or a
Dalek, yeah.
Get a box of real rocks and your dog won't be able to move them.
Well, what you got to worry about though is it's ammonia proof. If the dog goes out there, if you get my drift.
Yeah. Well, I know we're building a new house, and unfortunately, it's the shortcut between the road and the multi-use path is across our property, right where we're doing construction, and so we have a gate across the road, but it's desert, right? So my contractor says, "Well, I got a solution for you," and he called his buddy up, and he got big rocks like this big, like 2 feet across, 3 or 4 of them, and set them across the desert path where the people would normally ride their bikes. So you can get across if you really want, but you can't ride through there anymore. And believe me, you can't move them because they weigh hundreds of pounds. And they had to bring them in a big flatbed truck. So I like it. And you put 3 of those together and put your magnetometer down in there, dog won't be able to get to it, theoretically.
Well, I'll ask my wife about that. She's
Say, I want to answer David's question from earlier. What kind of whisper stuff am I using? So I started out with a tapper transmitter like you have.
okay, but you didn't fry it.
No, and it runs. The one that I liked the best was 30 meters, which of course you have to have appropriate license for that.
Yeah, I can't.
But 30 meters is a band that the transmission rates are great, like 20 meters, but the density of people there is less. So, but I did get good results there. For the receiver, I use a red pitaya. And if you use Pavel
Red
pitaya,
which
is a devil fruit, or it's a name of another fruit.
Poor man's tangerine.
Yeah.
Actually, a rich man's tangerine.
Yeah. Let me grab it.
They weren't that cheap.
It's a tangerine you can actually get.
Yeah.
So I have one. I built a little Lexon top and bottom so that I wouldn't drop a screwdriver on it, and actually put a fan on it. But it's just a simple board with 4.
So which one of them is that, Dave? Because I got a 12.
I have a 16 and a 14, and I have the I've been using mostly the 16, but I switched it out just to make sure. And then there's a website, Pavel's website, Dimov.
Pavel Demon.
He has code in there to make this work like
An HPSDR.
yes, an HPSDR. I used the code that he had for the Whisper receiver. Supposedly, he claims it'll also be a Whisper transmitter, but I could never get it mine to transmit. But I use the receiver, and it's set up so it receives 8 bands at once.
Simultaneously, or is it
Yeah,
cycle through them, or?
No, it's simultaneously on this
Okay.
one because the way it's set up. And that's what I use pretty much. But then I got where I wanted to use more bands of the tapper stuff. And I tried a couple things that didn't work. I thought about building a scheduler that would switch between the pies, but I ended up buying a transmitter from Sweden. It's a guy named Zactech.
Oh, okay,
And-
yeah, I saw that.
And his will switch off between, I have one that goes from 80 to 10, and it just switches off. And I have these running on separate antennas, but they are in my yard, so they aren't completely, but the receiver is just receiving, and the transmitter is sending 0.2 of a watt. So I'm assuming that's low enough wattage that it's not going to do horrible things to anything.
Dave, what are you feeding the red pitaya with?
Feeding it?
Yeah, well, what's your signal source? It doesn't have any input signal conditioning, so
No,
what are you using for
I'm
antenna
using
and amp?
a wire antenna, and I'm right now,
Just directly.
yes, directly in, and it seems to work fine. It's the same antenna I would usually use for my HPSDR radios. The other option you can use is Rob Rob Robinette's system is a Kiwi SDR with a beagle bone on the back.
Can you still get, you can get those still, right? Because last time I looked around, most of them were sold out.
Yeah, I have two. And you then run his software. He wrote a hellaciously big Linux script. And that's the way he programmed it, which at times I thought about, well, that could be rewritten as code, but he wrote a Linux script and it works. And then he runs the Linux script on a Red Pitaya or a Raspberry Pi connected to this and does it headless. So there's no interface. And that's for multi-band receive.
Oh, and doesn't QRP Labs have a send and receive sort of system?
Yes, I haven't used that. I have used
No, I would prefer to use Tapper products because
well, the only trouble
Prime.
with Tapper is if you're going to change bands frequently, that's a problem. If you run a couple days on one band and then switch to another one, that's not a problem. I've also tried this thing, which is a hobby PCB. This is basically a glorified SDR console. What? Soft rock, that's what I'm talking about. So it's an updated soft rock, but the regular software, JTX software will connect up to this one, and you don't need any other radio software, and it will transmit and receive using that software. But this uses a sound card. So you have to have a little sound card like a dongle. And then it turns it into an audio signal that you process. It worked cleverly, but I don't use it regularly. So I've tried a bunch of things. And I like to.
Well, that sounds useful. I'll look into those options and then maybe contact you.
Yeah. I've found that the only problem that I have with the Red Pitaya is it will overheat. And you basically just need to cool it down and then start up again. And, you know, I put these fans on, that helped quite a bit. And they do have a heat sink on the FPGA. But they will overheat running all the time duty cycle. So that's what I do. But I like to try different things to know how well they work and compare them.
That's some good information there. Maybe Tapper will come up with an all-in-one solution.
Yeah. I have a friend who lives about 15 miles from me and has a very equivalent kind of footprint on the WhisperNet. And I don't know what he's reading, but I was going to get a hold of him. And but it's kind of fun to have somebody, you know, that's not very far from you, and you can see, well, he got this person and I didn't, or I got this person and he didn't, kind of thing.
I think Tapper will have a version. It's called the TangerineSDR.
Well, that is the TangerineSDR will do.
So we could ever get any parts.
Yes. So I just find it interesting to know what all the different pieces that are out there and what they're good at and what they're not good at.
Have you thought of using like an SDR Play or one of the cheaper SDRs?
I am in the process of doing some of that because I've been talking with Phil Karn, trying to get his software going. And I have, it runs but I still have some Linux audio problems. And he
This is
can't
the,
tell me how to fix it, and I haven't found a way to fix it
this is
either.
the multicast stuff.
Yes. And I have a little network set up in my office, in my shack here, so that it's you basically set up multicast in a local network. And then, because if you flooded it out, I mean, you could probably do it on a bridged network in your own house.
So you have a router that supports multicast then.
Yes. So, but the multicast part works great. I'm quite
Well, so what's the
impressed.
problem? What is it? Does it crash or what does it do?
It throws errors about the setup. And Phil, you know Phil, right?
Yeah.
He builds it, and once he gets it working, he doesn't worry about it. And he didn't. And what I told him I was going to do is I was going to get a clean Raspberry Pi and try to build it over and over, so that I knew that if you did it my way, it would work at the end.
Yeah.
And
a lot
I
of
can't
times
get,
that's the solution to do it, is start with zero, build
yes,
it just like he did. And then you won't have any of the dependency errors that you have because you loaded something that he didn't load.
right. And I found a bunch of things he didn't load, but I think the reason is he uses for his console a Mac,
Oh, yeah.
and then the rest of it's on Raspberry Pis. And
But isn't
so
that just a serial port, or what does he use the Mac for? How
the
does he
Mac-
communicate?
the Mac it's all in his network.
So
it's
he's
on-
using the Mac as a networked port into his, and he controls the network with that.
Yeah, he does the audio parts in his Mac, I think. So, and it technically will work on a Pi, but I haven't found the magic sauce yet. And you know how it is. It's not like it doesn't not work, but it doesn't completely work. It's just there's.
So it's just enough to get you excited that it might work someday.
Yes.
But yet you got to find the one thing you did wrong.
I have all the code compiled. Everything runs fine. I can see it processing stuff. I just can't get the audio out.
Wow.
And I think Phil got tired of answering some of my questions. So.
Do you actually get him to answer you?
Yeah. We've conversed this fall since DCC.
Well, that's good, because
and he said
he hard to get his attention sometimes.
He did want to get it where he could give it to people, but a lot of people have done exactly what I've done and not gotten it working. And he has it working both at his San Diego State and at his house.
But he still uses a Mac both places, right?
Yes. So I've been trying to figure out where we need to diverge just a little bit to make it all work.
Well, either you got to get a Mac or he's got to get a PC to replace
Well,
that.
I have an old Mac, but my old Mac is from 2012.
Huh.
Ain't good enough.
I'm not at the point of wanting to go buy another one. So.
But if you're just doing audio processing, maybe the operating system's too far down rev, right?
Yeah. So do you remember at DCC, he mentioned that he had a WWV simulator?
Oh yeah, I heard it. He played it for me.
Well, I built that both on a Linux box and on a Mac, and it works much better on the Mac than it does on the Linux box. And it's because the voice synthesizer on the Mac was quite mature, and the one on the Linux box was kind of sounded like old bad movie robot.
I call it the Bulgarian.
Yes.
But that's not politically correct anymore. I used to have a voice recorder. I had a burglar alarm that would allow you to call into your house and listen on a microphone.
Oh, okay.
But the announcement was this voice synthesizer that you could barely understand. It was like an Eastern European with a heavy accent.
Yes.
And it was just so. But of course, you didn't buy it for that reason.
Yes.
but it was still funny because it's like, we had I also sent my mom one of those early Radio Shack clocks. It was a voice announcer. And when you turn the voice announcement on, it announces on every hour, right? Automatically. So I put it in the Christmas box and I mailed it to her UPS.
And it was running.
Yeah, and it was running. And she leaves her store at 5 p.m. right now. It's December, right? So it gets dark in Virginia at 5 p.m. So she puts the thing in her car and gets in, and then it goes, it's 5 p.m. like that. And she freaks out because she thinks there's a guy in the back seat that's gonna hijack her. And so I got yelled at for that. So
yeah. But anyway, his code actually is quite interesting and quite good. I mean, the regular C stuff is
it's
clean and compiles
some
well.
stupid little thing that you know that
and it
prevents
just, you have to sit there and work through the problem, and that same as all the other software problems I've worked on. So
yeah. And then you got to just decide whether it's worth the time that you're going to spend on it to do it.
Yes.
Dave, I got a question.
Yes.
You say he's doing audio processing on the Mac. That's coming off the multicast. Is that coming in as just raw data, or has he demodulated it? Or
you got to remember, multicast. He is linking a bunch of. It's very Linux philosophy. So he has modules that do one thing. So he has one module that talks to the dongle, and it then throws a IQ stream. Then he has another module that takes it and does the FFTs and the filtering and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But you can then get out of that module 7 or 8 or 10. It's kind of unlimited, except for your bandwidth, streams out of one RTL. So he listens to all.
I understand all of that. The question is, what is he sending to the Macintosh that you're having trouble with? Is it an unmodulated
PCM?
PCM? Yes. Unmodulated radio?
Yes.
Or is it already audio?
It's already, it's supposed to come out as audio, but he has a monitor one that does curses, and it does, and I could sit down and rewrite it, but I'm trying to make his work. So, it's basically, he wrote it before Pulse Audio was in there.
Well, they've got a replacement. They got a replacement for Pulse at this point.
Yeah.
It's called
So
Pipewire.
He's written it with ULSA.
Oh, Lord.
And so you got to keep track of lots of configuration details to make it work properly.
But it's just an audio stream.
Yes. His 2 audio streams are either Opus or PCM.
Okay. So he's sending an encoded audio stream. Yeah, that it probably needs to be brought up to date. There's you say ALSA, then they came out with Pulse and Jack, and now there's a replacement called Pipewire that's supposed to replace all of them, but it's not really out in mainstream yet.
Yeah. Now he participated in writing the RTP protocol.
The real-time streaming stuff.
Yeah. And in there, those are the only 2 audio protocols that are covenanted by that protocol.
Okay, I understand what he's doing now, and it just sounds like his code needs to be updated.
Yeah, and
to something more modern.
You got to remember, Phil is like a 1980s programmer. And when you understand that, it all makes lots of sense.
It was a damn good one, too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll duck out.
So that's what I've been spending most of the fall trying to figure out. And I've made some progress.
Dave, I've also looked at his programs too. And his is actually very similar to Paul Nicholson's VLFRX tools. like Phil, I also use a Mac quite a bit, and so the audio audio decoder program for the Mac that uses the Mac's the OSS or the Mac Core audio driver, right? And
Yeah,
okay,
but the problem is Phil has written these individual modules that do one thing, and what, like everything's decoded to PCM first, and then the PCM is either encoded to Opus or it's processed. If it's small enough, he just processes it straight to the audio. But he
Okay.
doesn't use like Mac programs. He actually writes code that just sends it to the audio output.
yeah. And the Linux version that he has, it uses ALSA, right?
Also, yes.
Well, I use ALSA myself, mainly for audio input. Have did you have trouble getting the ALSA configuration to work?
It's getting the right parameters so that it works the way that Phil intended it to.
Oh, okay.
So that's the problem. See, Phil has not written it as a installable package or anything. It is a bunch of code that you have to compile, and you have to know the configuration, and he does all the configurations by hand.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like you work through it and something's not working. A lot of things I could catch, and then I'd ask him about, oh yeah, I need to do that. Make it simpler. And he has this fall actually improved several things. So it's a work in progress.
Okay. Yeah, Phil, I actually like the way Phil does his code, and
I do too.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get it so that other people can compile it or we can make a package of it.
Yeah. We're actually if you install Xcode on that old Mac, you might be able to get it to compile on there.
Yeah, I have compiled, well, like I compiled that WWV simulator on that Mac and it worked fine. So
yeah.
I think that's the thing, is he does most of his audio listening on the Mac, as that is his main computer.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems like he's that 1980s Unix guy like me, and
What makes you think he has a new Mac?
Yeah.
The Mac SE maybe? SE30?
I don't know, but
Are people still running PCs? Is that a thing? I thought everyone switched to Mac.
No. There's a world of Linux out there.
I like your attitude.
David McGaw, I thought I saw like an old Mac Plus or something down at Arrival Heights the last time I was there.
I got a Mac 2 in storage.
Mac is something I get when I go to McDonald's.
I've still got my Mac 512K somewhere.
I mean, I just don't have time for PCs. I need a computer to work so that I can actually get my job done.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. All the PCs today are being upgraded to Windows 11, which that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I use a Mac just simply because I need a computer to work, not.
That's why I use a PC.
If
I
I
can't
want
get the
toys,
software.
that's what ham radio is for.
I can't get the software to work on a Mac, so you have to use a PC.
Oh, no,
well,
there I beg to differ. My Mac does really good Windows. The only thing is that, it doesn't do Windows 11 because it doesn't have that security stuff, though there are workarounds.
And news for you, most of my machines won't do Windows 11 either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I only
exactly.
have Linux machines, so.
But no, my Mac, one of the reasons I run Mac is because it will do Windows when I need it.
Well, and it'll do a little bit of Linux as well.
Absolutely.
So
And there-
anyway, I need to go. So
I'm going to say goodnight as well. Thank you very much, everybody.
Me too, 7-3.
Right.
Happy New
73.
Year.
Happy
Happy New Year.
Night all.
Oh, and Nathaniel, I saw
Thanks.
you that survey, so you should get it when you start work on that thing tomorrow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sorry it took so long.
Don't worry about it. Thanks
I-
for everything.
Well, I found out that I'd given 9 presentations last year.
Excellent.
So it's like kind of good to go through and tally them up to see what you've done. Kind of
Yeah.
a you and your view thing. So anyway,
Yeah, I
I'll
have to. Thank you so much, Scotty.
okay.
Later.
7-3.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.